Dear Montessori colleagues and friends all over the world, hello and welcome. This is Montessori Institute Prague podcast, Montessori love stories that need to be told. My name is Mirka. I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm really excited that you're listening to us right now, and I really hope you're going to enjoy this. Okay, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Montessori Institute Prague podcast, Montessori love stories that need to be told. And I'm just gonna admit it right up front. I have two guests today with me who just made me completely nervous. So we'll see how this conversation goes. I'd like to welcome my dear friends and colleagues, Carla Foster and Kyla Morenz, who are 6 to 12 AMI trainers, our 6 to 12 AMI trainers. And let's dive into it. The purpose of this podcast is to tell Montessori stories which need to be told. And so I invited these two beautiful ladies and experienced Montessorians to share with us today about their Montessori story. And before we start, I'm going to ask you both to please introduce yourselves. Normally, I ask my guests, who are you? But because you just gave me a complete washing about the question, I'm just going to ask you to stay on my safe side. Please introduce yourself. Okay. Carla, would you do the honor, please, and tell us about yourself a little bit?
Well, I'm from California, and grew up during the Vietnam War and had a very strong feeling that either things were going to be doomed forever or one had to do something about it, but I never knew what that might be. And I instead usually just escaped into literature, into dance, into music, until I started looking at anthropology. And then I started getting a handle on humanity and thinking about humanity, and then maybe thinking that maybe there's actually something you can do without being a politician or fixing everything. That's where I was when I first met Montessori.
Okay, thank you. Kyla, would you please introduce yourself a little bit too?
Well, I'm also from North America. I'm from Canada, a little more east than Carla, not quite on the East Coast though. I'm on a great lake, Lake Ontario, in Toronto. And yeah, I grew up in Toronto and I had 3 older brothers, love them dearly, who have been strong influences on my life. And my mother was a strong influence. And she's the one that I am going to, I often say I blame her for getting into Montessori or getting me into Montessori. But I like, there's a French phrase, grâce à ma mère, which is sort of, thanks to my mother. I'm in Montessori, and she was the one who told me to go and take my 3 to 6 training after my first child was born. And I said, why would I do that? I don't want to be a 3 to 6 teacher. And she said, well, even if you don't go into Montessori and teach in Montessori, at least you'll have that background and you'll be able to support your child growing up. And so I said, all right, I will go and take my 3 to 6 training. So grâce à ma mère, I'm followed a long route here to a trainer now.
Okay, so you both jumped right into being a Montessorian. So maybe I'll rephrase the question and I'll ask you, who were you before Montessori? Carla, who were you before Montessori?
Well, I was a dancer and I was interested in all sorts of things, history and languages. I always thought I was going to learn 12 languages. That was my original goal. I've only managed to learn 2.5, but And I'm the daughter of a pediatrician, and I was never going to be a doctor, but I think grâce à mon père, he actually was the one, not who got me into Montessori, but who got me to stick it out when I thought this is definitely not what I want to do, when I was working as an assistant. And because he said, no, you just don't understand them. And I'm like, yeah, we could be agreed on that. And I usually did the opposite of what my father ever told me to do. So this was one of the times when I actually listened to him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you said you studied anthropology. How did you first hear about Montessori, Carla?
Well, that was when I was 18 and came back from my first trip to Norway, where I was an exchange student. And I was mildly depressed, as an 18-year-old can get. I had not gone to school right after high school. I'd just gone to this exchange program. I'd gotten into universities, but I was abandoning all that to the total despair of my family. And just basically was in my room. And my dad was banging on the door saying, get a job. So if you're going to stay here, you have to get a job. So I contacted an old high school friend of mine, and she says, I'm working at a Montessori school. So I said, I don't know what that is, but I need a job. Otherwise, my dad's going to throw me out. So I will do that. And I was terrible at it. I didn't like the children. They didn't like me. It was a 3 to 6 environment. Yeah, so that's how I met Montessori, was not in a good way.
Well, that's really interesting, because I'm usually, when I ask people, about the story, it's very charming and full of light and walking into the 3 to 6 classroom with children calmly working. Did you go and see, before you accepted the job, did you go and see the school, or did you just say, okay, and started?
No, I didn't go and see it. I just jumped in. But after a few months, a new teacher came in, and she said, this is not a Montessori school. And I'm like, well, don't ask me. I don't know. I'm about to go get a job in a restaurant, which was my second job. I'm just going to go get more hours there instead. But she said, well, I can do something about this if you will be my assistant. So I said, if you can even get me to like children at all, then sure, that sounds good, because I felt bad. I felt bad that I was so unsuccessful after being a really good student. I felt bad because I had abandoned an academic career and didn't know how to get back into that, didn't know, I was dancing, but I wasn't trying to be professional at that either. So I was just in a big end of teenage kind of fog. So having somebody say, I can help you see something that you've not seen before, I said, fine. And she did. She showed me that transformation. And that was a seed that was sown. And then I went back to school to study anthropology after that. But I kept that seed kept growing until I was finished with my master's, and then had the decision to keep on going in academia or do something useful. So I decided to try to do my 3 to 6 training, which I did in London.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask about the story after the diploma course in London, but I also want to know from Kyla about your first experience with Montessori. Do you have a lovey-dovey pink light-litten memory of your first entry?
That was it. That was my mom saying, you should go take it. And I was like, okay, I don't know what else to do. I followed a slightly different route from Carla after high school. I went to university so that I could get away from home. And that was the way I could afford to do it, because my parents would support me through the first year, and then I was in the co-op program, so I could work and alternate work and school. And so that was the way that I was like, I'm going to support myself. And after the first year, I was pretty much able to do it, which was really great. But then that eventually ended, and even though I had deliberately chosen a different job every single work term to get lots of experiences. I worked at IBM, I worked in government position, I worked in a small family business, I worked at an outdoor ed center. Like I got all these different experiences to try and figure out what I was going to do with my life. And that didn't help. So it didn't happen. So after my first child was born, I was still kind of like, you know, what do we do? And when my mom said, well, go and take this. And I thought, more school, I love it. I don't have to make a decision, right? So I was able to put off making that final decision by taking more school.
How did she
think
about Montessori? Why did she think?
She'd done a lot of reading about Montessori and really liked it. And she was a very thoughtful person. She grew up on a farm, a small farm outside, and she had to leave home to finish high school as a teenager because there was no high school nearby. So she had to move out. She had to go and finish high school. And she really wanted to go on and continue to college, but didn't have the funds and didn't have the financial support from different places. So she's always been very much with myself and my brothers encouraging of going and getting more education, going and finding what you love and pursuing it. So I think for her, it was just another, well, you haven't done this yet, so see if you might like it.
So you did your 3 to 6, and can you share where did you train?
I trained in Toronto at the Foundation for Montessori Education with Sandra Gerlato, who's still training to this day.
So it's kind of odd. You both did a 3 to 6 diploma course, and now you're 6 to 12 trainers. So that's an obvious question, right? What happened?
Well, for me, Mrs. Hilla Patel was one of my advisors for my training in London. And in my first conference with her, she said, I think you'll become an elementary person. And I said, you are out of your mind. I don't even know if I can deal with the 5-year-olds. So, but she said, no, I think you've got the temperament and the interests for it. And so I said, well, whatever, probably not going to happen. And then as luck would have it, when I got back to California after my training, there were no jobs in 3 to 6, and I ended up as an assistant in an elementary classroom. And within about a couple of months, I understood what she meant. But it took another, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years of just working and trying to get working in 3 to 6 classrooms as well, before I had enough money to take another training.
So Carla, do you think that you have to be like a 6 to 12 person to teach in a 6 to 12 school, 6 to 12 class, or how does this work? You have lots of experience with this. How does one know what's the right age group to work with? What's the decisive?
That's a hard question. I think there's so many factors that go into something like that and making that decision. I mean, even for me, like I'm a 6 to 12 person. I love those children. I love the way their minds work, the questions that they ask. They become these almost, I sometimes refer to them as young philosophers. Some of the questions they ask were very philosophical, and there's a certain level of interest and engagement that you can have with those young minds that it's not the same with 3 to 6. I mean, I substituted in 3 to 6 classrooms and, the practice teaching, and they were lovely children, but I really couldn't wait for them to grow up and get a sense of humor. They just, I want to be able to tell a good knock-knock joke that actually is funny, not just words that follow a pattern.
Oh, I know. I know so much what you're talking about now, because my daughter, she's turning 7, and we have all this whole thing about jokes, and Marushka is older, she's 9, and it's such a difference when Marushka tells a joke than when Vicky tells a joke, and she'll, like you say, it's just a series of words, and then in the end, before anybody starts laughing, she will explain why it's funny. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's a charm to those 3 to 6 year olds. There really is. What it takes to work with them, I'm not one who could tell you, certainly, because after a certain amount of time, I just need a good joke.
Mhm. So there's something that we connect with on that particular age level that.
For me, I liked working with 3 to 6 year olds in the same way that I liked ballet. There was the sort of the extreme discipline of movement and the grace you had to develop, and the choreography of the classroom. But with the 6 to 12 year olds, every interest you have ever had or ever will have becomes useful. And for my mind, that was just like saying, wow, I don't have to choose what I want to be when I grow up. I can be everything, but I just have to be it with the understanding that my real job is to help them be it. But I could be everything. And that was a very exciting prospect, because I had also had a very hard time thinking, what am I going to do with myself? Who am I? What is it? And then I realized, oh, I'm everything. I can be everything with these children. And then that actually serves them. And that was very nice to sort of see that as being a service, that you're doing something that's not just for yourself, because otherwise all your interests are just me getting more stuff, and it becomes a burden after a while. So to be able to use it to inspire children was really great.
So Carla, you described you were with that teacher, being an assistant, and then so at some point something happened that you fell in love with children, or that you started thinking there's
I think I fell in love with humanity, not children per se. I know Kyla and I have joked a little bit about, like, you don't want to really say I love children, because you need to just love humanity, and the potential. So like reading to educate the human potential was like a big, I don't know, it sort of said all the things that I would have liked to think about in serving humanity's potential, as opposed to just being around children or liking children. It didn't really matter whether I liked them or not anymore. And that was really good, because then it wasn't about me. And that made it possible to work with them, because it wasn't about me at all. Yeah.
Thank you. And how did you two meet? Then you.
It was a hot summer night in London, England.
Right.
The year was 2007. We met because we both started the Training of Trainers program at the same time. And we were posted, I guess is the word, posted to London with Anne Dunn as our trainer on that summer course in 2007 for 3 summers. So we got to know each other very well over that course. It was a summer course, because summer courses are intensive anyway. And then being on the Training of Trainers program together, which is also an intensive course. So that's where we first met, and I think got to know each other a little bit.
Yeah, and during this, probably around the second summer, we dared to say to each other, we should run a course together someday, and we started already thinking and making kind of tentative plans about that. But it took another, 8 years or so before that actually happened.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks to you, Mirka.
I'm really glad, because you are amazing together.
Yeah, I think it was actually it was you, Mirka, here in Prague, getting us to come here. That was the first course we started together. Yeah.
And I think we were very lucky also to have Anne as our mentor, because of her sense of humor, and her just general Irish wit that then kept us afloat quite a bit during, the trying to do everything, because it was a brand new course and there was a lot of to do.
Yeah.
So you did two courses with two different trainers, or just two with Anne and then one more with somebody else? I mean, did you like keep going on this TOT track together, or did at some point
No, I did two courses in India with Jean Miller, and then my third course really was with Anne, but it was kind of in between. But Kyla, you did?
I did two courses with Anne. I did one in the summer course in London, and I did an academic year with her in Dublin. And then I later did a third course with Carol Hicks in Toronto.
Okay. And is it still the love for humanity that gets you out of bed in the morning and forces you to travel the world, pack your suitcases and go to places and what?
I think for me, I think it's the love of the people that I work with. That's what really makes it worthwhile, is that there are two groups that always make a big difference. One is the students, evidently, that you work with, that it's always a new group. And as you have the privilege of accompanying them on this journey through the training and the changes that they're going through, and you do go through huge changes through the training. It's really a privilege to watch them grow and to see sort of that. Sometimes they come in a little skeptical, and then to see that transformed into this sort of like, wow, so that's what you were talking about, when they come back from being with the children, and then they come back and they just get this wide-eyed excitement. And that's one group that just, it's so wonderful to be able to be with them and to observe that transformation happen. And then I think the other is the people that I work with, everyone, and to be able to work with Carla is fantastic. And to be surrounded by the team at MIP. I'm sounding like an advertisement now, but really that's what gets me on those planes and saying, oh man, I have to pack my suitcase again for another season, but I'm going to see, all the people who work there. And that gets me excited, because packing does not get me excited at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm now based in Norway, and I love my work with the Norwegian teachers, but it's a small country with a small language, and not a small language, but a language that doesn't serve very many people. And it has its specific challenges, and it's very wonderful to be at Prague with Kyla, because one, she's also working with other groups of people and brings that experience. Then we are working with this multilingual, multinational group, and that gets me back into the international feeling that I originally was interested in when I got into Montessori, rather than feeling like I was just sort of stuck out into the provincial work in one country. I really didn't want to continue just being in one country.
Well, the work in Norway is, a lot of people kind of look at Norway for inspiration and to learn. And I think it's very special because you're actually working within a university environment. Would you share a little bit about that? Because I think not many people know that you're actually, the AMI program 3 to 6 and 6 to 12 is part of a university degree. Would you share a little bit about that, Carla? How did that come about?
Well, it's not part of a university degree, but it is university credits. And it came about through a happy meeting of the head of the university happened to be a parent, or former parent from our school. There were people within the Department of Pedagogy that knew me and my colleague Madlena, and it started off as just a kind of a pilot program because the Norwegian government supports Montessori schools, and they felt that it was a good thing to then have an official type of training there. And that's still the case, although with the budget cuts here and there, we're never totally safe. But they've really let us do what we want for our students. We haven't become fully integrated into the university pedagogy thing. We're still kind of a stepchild in the organization, but there are definitely people in the university that are supportive, which is good, and we just keep chipping away and hopefully become more integrated as we go.
So students get a teaching certificate, a Montessori teaching certificate?
They actually already have to have a teaching certificate before they can apply. So this is an add-on, which we're, of course, always trying to get to become part of a master's. We have not been successful yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but because we also have a national Montessori curriculum in Norway that I was part of developing through the affiliated society, it is really important that people who are going to start schools have the training to be able to implement that curriculum, because they don't actually have the right to do any other curriculum if they're going to be a Montessori school. Yeah.
That's quite an accomplishment. And we want to maybe mention Nina Johansen so that people hear her name here at this point, because she was very instrumental in achieving that. She's the head of the Montessori Norway Society or Association. And she also did a diploma course with you, right? The 60.
Yes, so she wasn't part of the original iteration of the curriculum, but in this newer version, which is, she really worked very well with government to sort of make it be possible for us to write it the way we wanted to write it, which was not the case in the original one. We had a lot of rules that we had to follow, which didn't help us in implementation.
Yeah. So I think they are probably the only European country that actually have Montessori curriculum approved and as a requirement that it's followed by all the schools in Europe. And I'm really hoping that we are actually now writing a project together with Nina for implementation of global standards of accreditation. So fingers crossed that this would be for Bulgaria, Romania, Czech Republic, and Norway to collaborate to start implementing the AMI global standards of accreditation. So we'll see. So maybe speaking of AMI, what would I like to ask? Maybe, so why AMI? The three of us are obviously, we are an AMI training center, and you both are AMI trainers. What's so special about AMI that you decided to spend your life promoting its work and doing AMI work?
Go for it, Kyla.
I think very simply that, I think AMI really focuses on not just, no, let me start again. It's that AMI has a strong focus on the theory, which is, why do we do this? And it's all about the child, and the child is always center. The child is always in the center of your mind. Is who is this child? Why are we doing this the way that we do it? Why do we have to make these changes in environments according to the age of the child? And what is it that the child has that we're trying to work with to support their development? And I think that, AMI works really hard at maintaining that child-centered focus and that theoretical balance, and that they don't allow themselves to get sort of pulled in all these multiple different directions that often happen with education. You know, the latest trend in reading, and it's, you know, it's gone from phonics to, you know, memory, all these different things. Like AMI just always says, no, let's look at the child. The child is who we're trying to build up and support. It has to come from the child, not what we as adults think the child should be, but what the child actually is, the one in front of us. And I love that the focus stays with that child. I mean, there are probably thousands of other reasons too, but that for me right now, that's the one that I can articulate, sort of.
I would second that. And also there is that sense of being part of an international community devoted to that child, that there, I have friends who are 0 to 3 trainers and 3 to 6 trainers and 12 to 18 trainers. And so you sense when you go to, for example, the annual general meeting or a congress, that you're part of something much larger than yourself, but that is also really stretches deep into different cultures, and you can have such wonderful conversations about the child with people who have completely different cultures than you have, and you still see that same child when you really look, and that's really exciting.
Yeah. Well, I shared that with you, you know, the depth of knowledge and the practice that I see when I see you two working with students, and then how that transfers into the classroom is really, really powerful. And yeah, so thank you for doing that together with us.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
And I have to say that when you mentioned that you get out of bed and do this work because of the people that you work with, I also share that. And it's probably for me one of the most important things is that, you know, when I come here, I actually get up in the morning and I look forward to going to work. And I know that's not, you know, everybody doesn't have this privilege to look forward to go to work, because they will be doing something so meaningful, and they will be doing it with people whom they sincerely love and respect and know that they're going to learn from. So for me, it's also, I mean, I look at you two and I really don't know even how this happened, that we are so blessed to work with each other. So I just want to share that as well. Is there, okay, a lot of people, so maybe I will just say, because I think that not everybody who listens to this podcast actually knows what AMI is, and I keep forgetting to say it. So I'm just, for the people who don't know what AMI is, it's Association Montessori International, and it's a global umbrella organization that was founded by Dr. Maria Montessori in 1929 to spread her legacy, guard her legacy, and spread her training and spread education and connect people who who want to do this work. So that's so that people know. And we will put in the footnotes of this podcast the website for AMI so that people can actually check this out as well. But, I think I'll make this my last or semi-last question. There are a lot of people out there, and we really have their needs in heart here at Montessori Institute Prague, who maybe just yet cannot afford to take an AMI diploma course or an AMI assistant course, and they still have maybe heard about Montessori, and they have a little light or fire in their heart, and they really would like to pursue, find out more, become guides one day, maybe, I don't know. Do you have some advice for them, what to do before they ever see if that opportunity opens up for them? Something encouraging.
Well, now that Montessori's books are translated, I think that that's a good place to start if they are translated. I think that there are some also some other people who I would want to just bring up, and one is Donna Gertz, who was the founder of Austin Montessori School. She has marvelous things that are very inspiring and also very down to earth, that can help people really see that. And one of the teachers who worked with her, and other people as well, but whose name is John Snyder, who wrote a book called Tending the Light. I find that book to be a book that I go also back to again and again and again, because I met him, and his soul speaks through that book, and I can hear his voice and I can see him when I'm reading it. And it's always something, especially for the elementary, to see that spark. And he worked for so many years and never lost it all the way up until he died. So, that there is resources. I'm not the best person to know about them because I'm so constantly just thinking about the next day's lectures and the things. So, I don't know, Kyla, do you have any other?
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat. I would say just go and see if there are Montessori schools, find out the training of the teachers. If there's a training center near you, see if there are workshops that are being offered and go and listen to them. And if you need a job, apply to be an assistant. If you don't need a job, but you want to be involved, you can apply to volunteer your time. If you have a skill or something, if you like knitting, I'm sure there's an elementary classroom near you that would love to have you come in, show the children how to knit.
And the AMI website also has many more resources than ever before, and you could get lost kind of just going and finding all the different things that they can tell you about. I think also this the program of Éducateurs Sans Frontières is worth checking out if one is not, if you have even a broader than classroom vision of Montessori, because there's some amazing work being done. And it's always very inspiring to see that you can think like a Montessorian in a hospital, in a refugee camp, in a business even, I think that it has an application to really all parts of your life.
And if your specialties, if you want to think about working with older people too, there's the Montessori and dementia and other things, or Montessori sports. For people who don't think we have too many resources, Carla, we certainly can offer a lot. We have the keys.
Yes. So I think that's really encouraging that, there's so many places and resources and websites and people and schools where people can just sort of go closer to the light and offer their hands and see what happens from there. We always need Montessori teachers and assistants, definitely. Okay, outside of diploma courses in Prague and in Canada and in Norway, is there something other fun that you're working on that you would like to share? Or that you'd like to do that you're not doing yet and you'd love to do?
Well,
exciting.
I have a little dream of writing some kind of a book where I gather the songs, stories about the timeline of life and the timeline, and to help people really get excited about teaching evolution in more ways than just sort of saying some facts or just looking at the timeline. That's something that's been gathering over time, but I've never been able to sit down and actually do the work of putting it all together, but someday.
Yes, thank you. That was kind of a guiding question, because I was going to, of course, trying to get to say that we might be offering a workshop on the timeline of life in Prague, so people who are interested. Kyla, do you have something like this, like a dream project or something that, like in your bucket list, in your Montessori bucket list?
In my Montessori bucket list, I would love to support the development of more language programs, language programs for other languages that follow that Montessori approach to learning the language. I think that that's something that's really important to me and I'm passionate about, because language is so much about who we are as a human being and how we connect not only to each other, but to the world around us. That words matter. So I would say that that's something that I would just like to be able to be involved and support as many different languages, getting that in place so that every child can enjoy learning to read and write in their first language. That would be a wonderful dream.
Okay. Well, your wishes are my, how do you say that in English? Your wishes are my order. Or
my command.
Let's see if some funding arises somewhere for some project or something. And it's going to be fun to do more of these things together in the future. And thank you so much for taking this time. I know it wasn't easy to make the time and to come and all of that. So thank you so much. I think people will love to listen to your stories and get to know you a little bit more. And
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's nice to get together, even though we're not all in Prague at the moment. So thank you.
It's true. I really enjoy this because it actually, it's 1 hour of talking to each other and listening to each other. And that's really special to do that. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Dear colleagues and friends, thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this inspiring Montessori story. I hope it encouraged you. I hope you learned something from it. And I hope that you realize that you are not alone on your Montessori journey. I'm looking forward to speaking with my next guest. And as we say in Czech language, naslyšenou in 2 weeks. Yours with love, Mirka from Montessori Institute Prague.